Commerce Club on the 49th floor of the 191 Club. Also over Buckhead Club, our sister property, 6 miles north of here. And we're both part of Invited, which is the largest owner and operator of golf clubs, private clubs, and stadium clubs in the United States. So just want to give you guys a warm welcome. We're in for a treat tonight with our panel of subject matter experts as we dive into divorce right and what that looks like for HR professionals. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna.
So I'm going to come back here.
Hello, panel.
Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Good evening. Thank you for attending. I'm going to start with some quick introductions. We're going to start with Vicki. Vicki Townsend is the founder and president of Divorce Right, Inc., an employee assistance program. It's a company serving companies and government agencies across the United States. She is also the co-founder and former CEO of the NADP, the National Association of Divorce Professionals, a professional association consisting of licensed and certified professionals that serve families going through a divorce. Divorce Right brings highly experienced divorce coaches and case managers in divorce mediation services in to support your employees for days, weeks, months, or even years so they can have their best outcome while building employee loyalty and improving employee retention. We're also joined by Stephen Childs. Stephen Childs is a GTML, which is a global talent management leader, which I've learned is a highly prestigious title. And he's also the CHRO of Panasonic Automotive. Stephen has over 23 years experience with Panasonic. Over the last 6 years, he's been relentlessly working on helping PSA become a year-over-year best and brightest place to work organization through a people product culture. He is a global keynote speaker, Columbia University trained executive coach, and Forbes contributor who is intentional about sharing what he has learned from others. He received a Global Fellow of Talent Management designation from the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania. Because of the strength of his amazing team, he has been honored to receive the 2018 HRD World Congress 50 HR Tech Minds Award, the On Conference 100 Top HR Professionals of the Year in 2021, and is a 2-time American Business Award winner for HR Executive of the Year. Thank you, Steve. Next, we have Paulette Rigo. Paulette is the Director and Coaching for Management for Divorce Right, founder of Better Divorce Academy, and author of best-selling release, Better Divorce Blueprint. As a credentialed mediator, certified divorce coach, high conflict specialist, she helps her clients create an optimal divorce experience and outcome, even in high conflict. It is Paulette's personal 8.5-year litigated and appellant experience and expertise that makes her so skilled in allowing her clients to stay in control, try to stay out of court, maintain their dignity, create the right team of professionals from the early stages of contemplation to the necessary final steps of healing using practical tools, inspiration, and proven models so that your employees can show up as a proven, productive member of your team. And lastly, we have Catherine Hansen joining us. Catherine is a certified business performance advisor with Insperity. Insperity works with CEO and management teams to provide customized solutions centered around human capital management, risk mitigation, benefits, and administration relief. 20 years with the Fortune magazine as an advertising sales executive, and she's also quite the volunteer. She's a board member of the Technology Association of Georgia in international business. The Holiday Adopt a Family, she delivers holiday meals, gifts, and visit. She's a holiday meal distribution holiday meal, and Hosea, Feed the Hungry and Homeless program. Thank you. So we're going to start our questions with Vicki.
Can I just ask you, I just want to make sure that on the LinkedIn that we have my microphone on, because because I'm not sure that it is, but do you have yours on?
I believe so. Let me double check.
What's that white one at the very bottom?
Yep, I'm
We're good?
I'm good with that.
No, it's
You were good, okay, as long as one of us has it on, we're good.
Great.
Thank you.
Vicky, you changed the trajectory of your career from working with divorcing professionals to working with companies and government agencies to help their employees with divorce. Why is this important, and why should these people do that?
Well, divorce has been something that we just don't talk about. We don't talk about in the workplace, right? We talk about it with our friends, but when you show up at work, it's, this is personal, this is taboo, we can't talk about it. But there have been studies in the last 10 to 12 years that show that the average person loses 40% of their productivity for an average of 5 years. Meaning that for every person that gets over it in a year, you've got somebody that's dealing with it for 10 years and longer. It's not this kind of productivity, it's not this kind of money that it's costing, right? It's not the kind that you can see. It's productivity, it's products, it's your services that are done on time and able to be sold and produce revenue for your company. So all of that money goes out the door. And what we've done in the past is by ignoring it as a part of a business model, it has really hurt the business far more than it even hurts the person going through it financially, from a financial perspective. There was a 2010 study by David Schramm at the University of Utah. And he did a study on the impacts of divorce and on our country, on companies and government agencies. And back in 2010, it was $300 billion a year in lost productivity due to divorce in the United States. 300 billion. So now here we are a few years later. Would everybody think maybe that's now 500 billion? $500 billion a year in lack of product, lost productivity that impacts each and every one of us. It impacts our businesses. And now with what we're doing here at the divorce rate, we actually bring a solution to that problem. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we just have to understand that really and truly ignoring what's happened to people's in their personal lives actually really has a major impact on the companies that they work for.
Thank you. And what are some of the cultural and religious issues facing divorcing employees that grew up in a different culture?
Oh, that's interesting because we now live in a multicultural international community, and a lot of our cities and a lot of our employees come from other countries, particularly in like high tech. There's a lot of Asian culture in high tech. And they experience divorce in a very different way. And they experience marriage in a very different way. In the Asian cultures, particularly with China and India, they have arranged marriages, and that's very foreign to us, right? Some of the things that come along with arranged marriages, like who here wants to be married to the person that your mother would have picked out for you when you were a baby? I can't imagine any of us. But what happens when you marry somebody that you absolutely can't stand and it wasn't meant to be, that brings out some other ugly things in their lives, including countries like India that have a very, very low divorce rate, very, very high arranged marriages. They also have they have about less than a 1% divorce rate because it's like not a part of their culture, but they have one of the highest domestic violence rates in the world. When you're married to somebody that you hate, it comes out in that way. In Iran, as an example, you have Iranian employees. If you were to divorce in Iran, the woman gets this much, 0. So we've got somebody that's working on a divorce with an Iranian couple that moved here, and it's 7 years because this man does not want to divorce his wife because he has to give 50% of their earnings over the course of their marriage, and he's saying, not only no, but heck no, I'm not doing that. So it's things like that in the religious community. If you've got a really religious family. That oftentimes involves women having to negotiate with their husbands for a Jewish get in the Muslim community. It's a marier, at a Catholic annulment. So those are the additional stressors that being in either from different countries where divorce looks very different from their perspective, not understanding our processes. Heck, here in the United States, we have 50 states and 50 different ways to get a divorce, right? I mean, it's not even the same within our own country, much less when you come here from another country and we're expecting them to be able to figure all this out on their own. And it's just really, really hard for them. And add the additional stressors of having to get those, religious documents so that you can marry again within your church or your temple or your synagogue. It's really, really stressful. It just adds to the temperature, increases the temperature within that marriage and within that divorce.
And to help some of the managers and business owners, what are the signs someone is divorced?
So you can start to see early on. And one of the things that's really important about this from an employer's perspective, somebody that's HR perspective, it's once you have an employee in your office that's, as my very Southern mother would call it, a come apart in your office, it's too late. It's already cost your company thousands, hundreds of thousands, at the highest levels, millions of dollars a year, in lack of productivity and inability to function as a productive member of the team. So it's just really important to understand that there are signs along the way that you can pick up on. And we'll teach you these things. We go more into depth into all of these in our training, but it's really important that you start to see some of the little signs so that you can, and we teach you how to talk to them in a compliant way too, and get them to maybe get them the support that they need to get through. So if the first is they're absent, they take time off, they need time to go visit with their attorneys, they have court appearances, meetings with financial advisors in schools, oftentimes they're moving, so there's a lot of absentee tardiness for the same reasons, picking up, the ex didn't pick up the children from school, or I have to drop off and you're changing schools and all of this other stuff. So those are some signs. Signs like just having emotional outbursts when they were not an emotional person before, being very combative at work and having a very challenging time getting through tasks, not being when they were normally a very timely, productive member of a team, suddenly they're missing deadlines, they're making errors. Errors is another big one. And there's something called presenteeism. It's a Harvard term that's come about somewhat recently. And that's when your employee is physically present at their desk. They're there, they showed up at work, but in their head, they are not there. They are everywhere else they could possibly be, but at doing and performing their work. So those are just some of the signs. And when you start to see that, and the important reason that we think it's really important to understand those types of things is so that you can get in there early. Because what we know is when we put them with people like Paulette and give them some guidance and direction, and they know that they have somebody on their side that is just getting them through this process, the temperature goes down, their head clears, and they're able to show up to work as a valuable team member and somebody that actually produces for the company. And that's why this is really, really important. And it's not that hard. One of the things that happens when somebody goes through the divorce process, and I liken it, you don't go to school to learn how to go through a divorce process. You don't know what that means. And suddenly your ex comes home and says, I want a divorce. And it's almost like handing them the keys to a jet engine and saying, here, you want to go to New York? Here are the keys, right? This system that we have, state by state, is labyrinthine by design. It is designed by the very people you have to pay a lot of money to go out. And it is a spider web of intricacies that is next to impossible for the person that shows up every day as a good employee to understand what this means it's so overwhelming that we try and get them out of that. And I watched today, and you were with me, Paulette talked to somebody in the car, it was a friend of mine, talked her down in 15 minutes. Took her from her voice, like from way up here to, she felt supported and calm, and she had a plan and direction, and she understood that there was light for her at the end of the tunnel. She's now able to show back up at work and participate in her own life, right? She enjoyed her life and get through that, and instead of worrying about this incredibly complicated system that nobody understands except the people that designed it. So we want to help people get through that in a kinder and gentler way so that they can get it out of their own head, stop worrying, know that they are supported and have the resources that they need to get them through a system that is designed for them to fail.
So powerful. Thank you, Vicki. Stephen, how does the current corporate environment support divorce, and how does that differ from the past?
Yeah, directly, it really does, right? So I think Vicki was talking about the lack of conversations that take place. It is, and after I had a conversation with you and Paulette, part of the infrastructure, even for well-being, it's really hard to dig into that information and support structure and the benefits that are related to supporting employees and see anything related to divorce. So it's tough. I think companies are spending a lot more time and effort thinking about well-being. With the last 2 years and all that's happened, that allows organizations to be more flexible and have remote work and those kind of things. That's happened to create an environment that's a lot more flexible, which obviously very helpful for anybody going through a divorce. But the tools themselves, even if you look at things like employee assistance programs, you have to dig through employee assistance program to really see anything related to divorce. It's in there. Same thing with legal support. A lot of companies offer different legal support, but you really have to dig. And most people are not in a position when they're going through this to start digging for themselves. You're in a very vulnerable state, a lot of high stress. So if it's not easy to find, then it's almost impossible to find if it's not right up front.
And what is the reason divorce in your experience has been overlooked as a whole? Do you think there's a reason? Is it lack of education, certification?
Yeah, I mean, going back to Vicki's comment, who talks about it, right? You don't talk about it at work, right? And it's not something, you generally do talk about it with your family, but even somebody who's gone through it, even those conversations were kept pretty close to the vest too, with friends and family. You go through it, you don't burden anybody with your rules, right? That's something that you think about when you go through it. So employees don't want to burden their family or their friends, and they certainly don't want to bring it to work and go, look, I'm going to be unproductive for the next 5 years.
Right.
So, heads up. Could be 10 years. I'm not sure. I'm hoping for one, but, you know, if you're going to come and have a conversation about your unproductivity, I felt the same way during the time frame. And if you don't have a really good boss, a lot of empathy and can see, I better really think about how to take a productive employee, which I thought was, and give that flexibility, then it's not a policy manual, right? There was not things in a policy manual that he was going off of. It was an empathetic boss. I need to figure out how to support this employee who's generally very good from a performance standpoint. And it was, there's no way you're not going to have performance issues. But given that fact, people are just not going to have conversations about it.
Thank you very much. Catherine, in all your years of corporate culture experience, how has the topic of divorce been handled in your experience?
Well, like it's been said by the other panelists, it's not talked about. And I think there's two major factors, which we definitely hit on. One, the fact that it is so incredibly personal. And it's nothing that anyone plans on going through. So not only is it so personal and almost taboo, even if you don't have family to go to, it is a lonely, lonely existence. So that's one, but I do feel like in the workplace too, there's a lot of that. What can a manager talk about from a compliance and an HR standpoint? And what are they allowed to ask? There are so many rules and regulations that govern that whole topic of not when it's just divorce, it's just anything when it's outside and something personal. So I think that that's part of the reason why there is no manual. I don't know if there can ever be a manual because no two divorces look alike. So there's not a roadmap to actually follow from an HR standpoint to support these folks. So it's going to be a difficult topic for a while. And that's where I think if an HR team in a corporate environment can just help turn it over, it eliminates their exposure for any risk, number one. And then the other thing, their exposure to even become involved in the conversation. From a corporate standpoint, you don't want to be involved in that conversation. So it could stay out of the workplace and put in professional hands where they could have truly, the support they need, but the open dialogue that they need to have to get that support. And that's where divorce right comes in and alongside of being able to help the corporate, the company and support the HR team.
And can you give us just a little background on Insperity, what that company does for smaller companies to medium-sized companies and what you do?
Sure. Insperity is, it's just a phenomenal company because that is our mission and our vision to support employees so they can become better employees. And that doesn't look the same in any two companies. But when you're trying to run an organization and look at, our sweet spot between 5 and 150 employees, your job, the leadership team goes into business to really for love and passion of a service or a product. And then they hire people, they have employees, and they have this whole complicated world of managing them. How do you retain them? How do you attract them? What do you offer? What's the competition? And so we come alongside with them, and we have just a team of experienced, educated, and continuously trained HR professionals that bring best practices to these companies. And we're a 35-year-old company and started with that core mission 35 years ago, is to help small businesses prosper. And look at what's changed in 35 years, almost everything, but our mission has stayed the same.
Fantastic. And speaking of changes, specifically post-COVID, do you see major cultural changes with some of these small and mid-sized companies?
Culture has become a lot more important because it's become a lot more complicated. We're working with remote workforces, and so that, how do you keep that culture still in place when you're working with remote teams, number one. But also, too, I think the whole hiring aspect has changed. You can't just look at local talent. You a lot of times have to go outside states to get the best talent you want, which adds, complication to obviously the laws and the rules and the regulations, but also keeping that culture there. But I do think what COVID has opened up is a challenge personally. People have more time together. Suicide rates have gone up, divorce rates have gone up, drug use has gone up. So I don't think companies can stay away from this anymore. COVID happened. And for good, bad, or indifferent, there's a lot that has to change philosophically with how companies take a look at the well-being of their employees.
So it's an ongoing thing, issue. Thank you, Catherine. Paulette, what is the role of a coach?
Wow, do we have an hour? Sometimes I'm on the phone with, or a call, could be in person, could be on a video conference, it could be a Zoom, phone, text, voice memo, email. Is there another form of conversation, communication? Probably we get around and spread because we need to be multi-dimensional to fitting into their world where they are. Because divorce affects every aspect of your life and every cell in your body. Much of that depends on where they find you or find me or us, as a divorce coach. And there aren't that many of us in the world, but it's growing. We play a role of being the person that locks arms with them. We walk through the fire with them. We help them make smart choices. We let them know all of their options, every one of them, and then help them make smart choices based on their options. Really important.
Thank you. How does it differ from therapy?
Well, the relationship that people typically have with a therapist is a long-term relationship. And I mean 10, 20, 30 years. Some people will go to therapy for a long, long time and hopefully they're making progress. Therapy is typically for addressing mental health concerns, diagnosis of issues, problems, a certain aspect of what they're trying to attain, achieve, manage. And it sometimes can go back in the past and they're trying to look at something from a long-term goal. It really just depends on the acronym after the therapist's name, whether it's a licensed clinical social worker, are they a counselor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and two. So it's a different relationship. And divorce coaching is a more short-term relationship, and short-term could be still a year, 2 or 3. So, but doesn't typically go to 30 years. I don't. If you have to work with a divorce coach that long, there's definitely a problem with your divorce coach, right? So, maybe more the third or fourth divorce. So, all humor aside. So, it's a shorter-term relationship. We're working on educating them the divorce process and helping them understand all of their aspects, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, physically, spiritually, but also judicial, legal, financial, residential, lending, insurance, taxes, you name it. So there's the emotional side, but there's also the practical side of what divorce coaches do.
And can you give us a couple of examples of clients who've helped, knowing that they have high demand jobs, their employment was really beneficial to their existence, that they needed that work, they needed to perform during this process?
Sure. Most of the people that I think have benefited from divorce coaching that have had corporate jobs and needed to still keep the wheels going, they couldn't just take an extended leave of absence because they had either a position of authority or power in their role, where one in particular was at the CDC, was going through a very high conflict divorce and was so successful, she's an epidemiologist, that she was given 2 enormous grants and promotions. And I don't think it had anything to do with COVID. It might have been a little coincidence. So that was really impressionable for me to see that it's such a high pressure career. She was able to still manage the divorce, mediate it, and not lose it in such a high pressure job. So she's a management at a very well-known fast food restaurant of chain. We'll leave them unnamed. But she had a mid-management position, went to a trial, a 7-day trial, ended up getting full custody of the children and still managed to get 2 promotions. So that was really impressive. And it was about a 18-month experience. I could keep going, but it's just a matter of them feeling confident in their love for their job and not wanting to lose that all that they've worked for, and not feel like the divorce had to start for them or legal term there, but you sidetrack them, you know, to keep them on track, that their career could still keep going, that they didn't have to leave that part of their life aside. It was still a vital part of who they were.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. The next question I have would be the benefit to a company for working with a divorce coach, but I think if Jesse answered that question.
Oh, it's endless, you know, and every individual's different. We all, you know, mentioned that there's no manual, right, Catherine? There's no guidebook or like, here's the exact thing you should do. Open the book, number one. And every case is different. How long have you been married? Do you have children? Do you own a business together? Are there health concerns? Are there addiction, abuse, domestic violence? Just a clash of the titans sometimes. It really just takes both parties to want to get through the divorce process and not throw in the towel, and make sure that either party doesn't dig in their heels, but is able to feel heard and seen and make really smart choices, because all of those things affect your work. And if they can stay focused at home, they can also stay much more productive at work. And it doesn't bleed into the other. They're able to see them as separate entities. They go to work focused, on time, productive. You know, they might still have those water cooler tears. That's part of being human. We don't stop becoming human because we're getting divorced or we have a job. We still have emotions that we need to take with us. But when you feel prepared, seen, heard, validated, and safe, it's going to make the world a difference in your career.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. I really appreciate everybody coming out. Stephen, Catherine, especially for adding your insight as on the front line, so to speak, and pull back the curtains of the divorce and help us in our mission to make things better and not keep it such a taboo secret. Something we all have gone through, and we hope to help others. Vicki, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would, something that you said, Stephen, about some EAP programs do offer mental health counseling, some do offer legal services, but divorce isn't just a legal crisis, it's not a mental health crisis. It's a life crisis. It is every aspect of your being, and every cell in your body is impacted by it. And there's not whether where you live, how you take the kids to school, where the kids are going to live, all of those decisions are impacted in that one divorce. And to our as a culture in the United States, we have made this a topic that it's, I can't tell you how many people have said that their bosses have said to them, don't bring this crap here to work. Your personal life stays at home. Well, that's not necessarily really the way it goes down. So what we do here at Divorce Right is we bring training to HR people as well as company supervisors, anybody with their nose to the grindstone. They can start to see somebody missing work, making errors, being late to work or leaving early, all of those signs that they now start to see that start to add up to there's something else going on here, and maybe we need to get this person the support that they need. So we are bringing that support with training so that you guys can help your employees feel supported and get the resources that they need. We bring divorce coaching and case management to the table with people like Paulette, and we have coaches that speak Chinese, Farsi, Japanese. We have that speak Spanish, of course English. We have religious experts. We even got a Jewish rabbi that is a divorce coach. And why is that important? Because everybody's divorce is different, and everybody has needs that are different. We have people that deal with families with special needs children. Those families experience divorce in a much more complicated way. Those people, depending upon how the divorce settlement statement is written, can actually lose their children's benefits. Just because an uneducated family law attorney didn't cross their T's and dot their I's, and their children lose their benefits. It's really important stuff. H-1B visa holders, we've got experts in all of that stuff to help you and help your employees have a resource where you can just open up where they can't with you, right? They can open up and tell us everything, and everything is sometimes really awful. And we help them through it. Like you said, we lock arms with these people, and we'll walk up the hill with them as long as they want us to. And we will help them clear their head, get a plan, give them direction, and give them some hope for their future. And that's what we do. And we try to keep them out of court and spending all of their life savings and their mental well-being during the process. And if we do that, I consider us a very successful company.
Thank you very much.
Exactly. I was just gonna make my comment just based on that, because a lot of what we're talking about here is sort of the inability to look at the cost impact to corporations for not doing this. But when we talk about the number of times that we talk about the stress levels in every cell in your body being impacted, imagine what that does to your health.
Yep.
So think about the health impact of the stress and all the other things that come with that. So just the inability to calculate the health costs that companies are fronting.
We
This is pretty.
We actually talk about that in our training because it's very true with cortisol and increased cortisol. Women that have been divorced actually have a higher rate of breast cancer. There's higher heart disease. There's all sorts of things that this impacts that actually impacts your health insurance costs and all of those other things. It's very intricate. It's a spider web, but we're here to help you and your employees string by string make it a more. It's never going to be great. Divorce is never going to be good. On its best day, it's still going to stink, but we're going to make it better. And we're going to give your employees the resources that they need, the support they need, so that they can show up as a better team the next day.
Steven, we have time for a question.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, because you talked about the pandemic and COVID. So if issues are festering in marriages now, we haven't yet seen the fallout, but is there data to support how much more? I'm only anticipating your business being in more demand 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Is there data that we're gathering yet, or are we operating in the dark for what COVID is going to do over the next few years to our workforce?
Well, it's hard to be stuck at home with somebody that you can't stand, right? And so our divorce filings went up during the pandemic. And there were some studies that was as much as 43% during the shutdown. It was really, it a little, when, it's hard to stay at home with somebody that, hey, I'll tell you a story. Nurses, in particular, experience divorce at very high rates. I'll tell you what I believe to be the case. They would go from a very stressful, horrible home life to a very stressful job at work with people calling them liars or spitting at them or biting them or telling them as they were putting a ventilator on them how this was all a hoax and they were wearing costumes that kept them safe, but they were drenched and losing 5 pounds of water weight every day. And then they had to go to had no rest. There was no place for them to decompress from the stress.
Yeah.
And so they experienced there was a lot of violence in it.
It was like, I have to have some peace somewhere in this next
But they
weekend
didn't
or
have
work. I'm gonna carve it out.
They didn't, and they didn't get it. They wanted that space, that place to go. So, they needed some support. I think it's gonna be a very interesting thing to see what the data shows.
They are showing an increase too with school teachers and police officers lately too. So.
First responders, for sure. First
The
responders.
teacher thing doesn't surprise me at all. The challenges,
Being
both
a
my
school
parents are in higher education today, both retired early because of COVID.
The question I have is, as an employer that's not familiar with your program, and employees may not be familiar with them, how do you introduce your program to them? And then if they want, our employees do want to utilize your services, how is it through insurance or do they pay for it out of pocket? If they want to use your service, how would an employee utilize your service and how would an employee find you?
Well, we have we're very flexible with the way we work with with companies. Some companies want to pay for the whole thing. We pool a lot of, if you're working with an HR company like Insperity, we have pooled rates that cover everybody. We have a 6-week jumpstart program that we have for employees. In terms of how that is, it depends upon your company. Like I said, some companies understand that this is far more expensive. It's the average cost of a divorce now is what,
Between $20,000 and $35,000.
right? So it is far more expensive than that in lost productivity to the company. When the company starts to understand that, they start to say, well, we'll pay some, we'll pay all, we'll reimburse, they do reimbursements. The only challenge with that is that we don't tell you who comes and uses our services. That's between,
It's confidential.
yeah, that's between, they don't want, what are the biggest reasons that people don't talk about it at work? They're afraid they're gonna lose their job.
Oh.
Yeah, and so.
Available to them, how would we include that in the package? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, why don't we can have that conversation afterwards, because we will work with you and we can make something happen for you and make sure that your employees are taken care of. Do you work with an HR consulting company?
For Paylocity.
Paylocity, okay. So we can work with Paylocity and get you covered and get your employees covered too.
It's highly customized too, and the work I do too in the coaching end.
Interestingly enough, there are a lot of career paths that experience divorce higher than others. One of the ones that always blows me away is firefighters experience divorce at very high.
That is so bizarre.
I thought so too, and I'll tell you why I believe that to be the case. Firefighters have 2 families. They go and they live with a fun family where they cook together, they go train together, they lift weights together, they do all of that stuff together, right?
Yeah.
And then they have the family at home where they have to go to the kids' recitals and they have to change diapers and they have to clean up, the kitchen, the dishes and all of that stuff. They have to cut the grass and all of that stuff. And suddenly this family looks a lot more fun than this family. This is just my personal opinion on it, but that's what I've seen based on my experience in the industry for over a decade now. That's just kind of, there's more of a fun family there. And I also don't believe that COVID did any help, and
It did not.
again, when you don't have a place that you can go that is not filled with stress, it's gonna come out in some ways. So.
But I will add, because I've worked with Insperity, I don't know if you are aware of that, our company has a partnership nationally with Insperity, and I've worked on and off with Insperity, having them in as speakers over the years. And if you aren't ahead of some of this stuff, you do pay the cost.
Mm-hmm.
As a business owner, whether you're small, large, or medium, you pay the cost if you don't plan ahead.
Right, and think about that number that I gave you earlier from that study from David Schramm, it was $300 billion a year back then. I think that everybody could be in agreement.
That was 2010.
Does that seem about right? $500 billion a year. We're talking about the cost of our war in Afghanistan every year is the same. I mean, come on, people. We have to stop.
It's a lot more easy to solve the divorce issue than
It's really actually, it is. It's so much easier, but it's uncomfortable to have the conversation.
Yeah.
That's where the challenge is. And that's where we would like to come in and offer the programs. And it would be on your shoulders to be the communication vehicle to your employees to say, if you are having problems, and by the way, you don't have to be married, because even if you're not married, people have children together and they start businesses together, they buy homes together, they buy cars together, they invest in things together. So we work with those people too. So it's not just your traditionally married families, but and their lack of productivity is still the same. But your obligation is to consistently inform your employees that this is a service that's available and that they can, definitely use it. And we'd love to have that conversation with you. Thank you.
I also see as a divorce coach that I think we touched on it, but it isn't just okay, we're getting a divorce, here's the process, here's the piece of paper, congratulations, go home and go live your life. It lingers, you've got to co-parent together, and sometimes there's a modification or an enforcement or some sort of, going back to court for contempt charges, and there's all kinds of nuance. Not that we want those things to happen, but that's really where employees get derailed. They think I'm good, and all of a sudden they're like, bam, back to square one again, and they need to know that they have, I know who I can go to for help, so I can manage this appropriately, so I don't find myself back in a court situation, avoiding the cost, the money that a little bit awkward. Though I personally save, and all divorces coach, but money, time, bad decisions, heartache, it's all encompassing. So I know too, Catherine and I spoke earlier about how important it is for companies out there to attract the right kind of employees, and they look at what you offer and they go, they got it going on. Like I really want to work with this company because they care about me as a human being. They're investing in me and my career and my future. And they look at the options of who they're going to work for and they go, wow, they care about, I'm not just a number. Like I truly matter as a human being. That's the difference that I see, that they feel that they're valued as an employee. It makes the world a difference. Yeah.
I would say I'm a millennial and I would not work for a company that I did not feel like valued my full person and not just the person that shows up 9 to 5. I mean, it's that important for me. And I'm glad that I work for a company that, says I care about you on the weekends, I care about you in the evenings, and not just your productivity during this set hours. So it's huge for millennials and Gen Z and everybody else,
Even us old people.
I think that conversations here on mental health that have come about involved us say we should care about people and not just what they can do for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
We were talking to a company not too terribly long ago that offers benefits if you adopt a dog. You take off 3 days of paid time off to adopt a dog. And I'm like, that's awesome. Well, what do you do for your people that are going through a real life crisis?
We don't talk about Actually,
You're getting a dog.
Everybody gets a break.
So you start to see where they put their priorities, and let's just face it, 50% of your employees have gone through it or are going to go through it. And we've actually got a cost calculator, by the way, on our website. You need 3 numbers. You need to know your number of employees, the average salary, and the cost of rehiring, the average cost of rehiring. And we'll give you a number that will get you it's pretty close. It's not exact, but it gets you kind of close. Because we use average salary versus, because we don't know what your productivity level is going to be different than hers. It's going to be different than hers. It's going to be different than mine. It's going to be different than Stephen's. So we tend to use we believe that your employees have to bring in as much productivity to the table that they cost your company, right? So we use that number, and then we take it by spread it over 5 years. That about 5% of your employees are going to be going through this, whether they're thinking about it, going through it, or have issues like the woman that we were talking to on the phone on the way here.
Yeah, she'd been divorced 6 years.
Yeah, or 7. Was it 7 years? And she now she wants to get full custody of her children because her husband is drinking and drugging and all of this stuff around his kids. So, those are the types of things that we work with. So, but more importantly, it impacts your bottom line. So this can be such a win-win. We can support your employees. We can get them back in the game. They become more loyal employees to you.
Oh yeah.
They become more connected to your culture and community. And by the way, 5% of divorced employees quit. So we're talking about a company not too terribly long ago that said we cannot afford to lose one quality control person. If we lose one of our quality control people, we can't find another one to replace them. in the time frame that we would need to make this happen, and it was shut down. And this is a Fortune 100 company, and you all know their names. And they're like, we have some mission critical people here that we can't afford to lose. And, you know, their pressure of their job is really high, and, you know, they end up.
Well, I was gonna say
right now it is. And, you know, I'll tell you, I'll give you some real, there's three main reasons that divorcing employees quit, and every one of them you can do something about. The first thing is they felt unsupported, and they felt like they were treated like garbage by their employers as they were going through it. Leave your divorce at home, right? That kind of stuff, right? The second is they can't find affordable housing near their office, so we have somebody right here, our moderator today is what's called a certified divorce lending professional. It's an amazing program for mortgage. If you're listening and you're in the mortgage industry, you want to work with divorcing clients, they're amazing because they help a family law attorney write a settlement statement that gives that employee more buying power. He knows how to do it. Not all the mortgage people know how to do that. He can get your employees more buying power so they don't move, right? And the other one is childcare, affordable childcare, so they move back with their parents, right? But if you provided childcare at work, or if you even have a childcare center near your office, where you can go in and say, listen, I want to pay you X number of dollars to take care of my kids, my employees' children at a great rate. There's not a child care center that wouldn't take you up on that. So the top three reasons that those divorcing employees leave, that's doable. That's you can add to that.
It's an intervention that.
There's exactly right. You know, but I'm telling you, having somebody like Stephen on your team that can help you get more buying power is critical to keeping them in your community.
Crisis intervention.
Absolutely.
Well, I did executive coaching too, and I was actually talking to somebody early in the week, Monday, and it was somebody who was a C-suite executive who quit his job the Friday before. And guess why he quit his job?
Divorce.
Yeah, he's going through a really bad divorce. And he quit his job because he was working for a Fortune 500 company. He didn't want to explain his reasons for his productivity going down, that extensively.
There you go.
He did not want to talk. He was not, again, most of us are not taught to be very vulnerable about the things in our lives in general, especially if you're a C-suite executive. And he knew his productivity was going to go down. And they said, well, the company was trying what they could. Let's take a sabbatical. We don't know what's going on, but why don't you take a sabbatical? And he says, no, because it's still going to impede on my productivity, and I want to just deal with it and move on. But just don't do it in 6 months and move on, right? That's kind of what he's learned.
Not without support. Good. I've seen that. This is
I'm going to say maybe.
But they weren't talking about
Right.
his employer. He didn't know what his resources were. They even
Right.
offered him resources, but he still didn't want to talk about it.
Sure.
So it does go back to,
It wasn't
you gotta figure it out.
confidential.
Yeah, it's not- yeah,
See,
so-
we could have.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is crisis management.
Right, and
Yeah.
it's really, this is a perfect, I wish you would have led with that. You could have led with this, that saved us a lot of time.
I'm gonna say
Yeah,
this.
it would have saved us a lot of time. Yeah,
I wanted to say this.
yeah, so that's exactly what we saw. That's exactly the kind of intervention that we make to get him, because I'm telling you, he could have been talked off that ledge. He could have been.
Yeah.
And we could have changed the direction of his life. Keep us in mind. But, well, thank you all. This was awesome. Thank you. Yes.
Stephen.
Yes,
See, I do believe in marriage. I got remarried.
Yay.
She's a great guy.
Yes.
No,
Yes. Thank
Wonderful.
you, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and turn up our LinkedIn Live, and we appreciate everybody today. Thank you, Commerce Club. Thank you, everybody, for attending today, and we'll see you next time. Woo. Thank you.
So it was so funny. I'm like, I've heard people